Hello and welcome to John McHugh Real Estate. Thanks for joining us. As a real estate agent for 23 years, one thing I can say about buying and selling homes is that we can't get it done unless our people are able to obtain the financing. And today we have a mortgage loan officer here from Guaranteed Rate, Sangeeta Kalidas. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, John.
I'm glad that you're here. You've been a mortgage broker. You're in the Wellesley office at Coldwell Banker. And how long have you been doing it?
This is my 15th year, so I feel like I've gone through a couple of cycles and feel like the market has changed a little bit between those times. But yeah, it's been a good ride so far.
And do you work out of the Wellesley office, or do you work in different areas, or just around this area?
I go to wherever my clients want me to be. So I will meet clients in realtors' offices, financial advisors' offices, personally in my own office, which is based in Boston, but I spend a lot of my time in the Wellesley Metro West area.
Excellent. And do you basically work with first-time buyers, second home buyers, purchasers?
All of the above.
Okay.
I love working with first-time home buyers because it's just an awesome experience to just share the very basics of what the process entails, to very seasoned buyers who also know what they're doing. It's their second or third rodeo, and they're either upgrading their current home, or they're buying their second home, or buying an investment property. So I try to understand and get a feel for each of my clients of what their need is, and have conversation with them to meet that, versus understanding that not everybody is doing their first rodeo in terms of a first-time home buyer.
So I will be out there, and I will do open houses if I have a listing, or I'll do open houses at another colleague's listing, or I have a lot of advertisements in the newspaper, at the gym, the movie theater, different places. I speak to friends and family over the course of years, and I will hand out my business card. That's how I basically obtain clients. Word of mouth is the number one, a referral from someone I've worked with before, some of my advertising. How do you obtain clients?
All of the above, similar to what you do. In the same sense, a lot of I've been doing this for 15 years, so a lot of my previous clients will refer their friends and families. I also reach out to many real estate agents, financial advisors, and other referral partners are always great to have existing clients, friends and family. That's always when they have personal referrals.
I thought I might get some kind of a heads up or secret method of obtaining people.
And I feel like if you just give great service to clients, you know what, they'll remember you. I keep in touch with my clients, checking in with them periodically, making sure, especially in the first couple of months of their new purchase. Because if you give somebody a great experience, they'll remember you.
For sure. Yeah. I agree with that, and I think that applies to many industries.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you, when we talk about obtaining a mortgage, we can just say the words, but how does the process begin? When somebody comes to you and they say, I'd like to buy a home, I want to do this, how does the whole process start with you?
So people usually reach out to me at different stages of their process. I love it when somebody's just starting to get the thought of, hey, I want to buy my first home. I love it when they're 6 months, a year out, and they sometimes do their own homework in terms of, okay, I run the numbers, this is my income, this is what I want to pay for a mortgage payment, this is how much house or how much down payment we can afford. So I like to go over those numbers that an existing client has started putting together, and then make them more concrete for a potential buyer. And if they have anything going on with their credit report that we need to get fixed, we can address that early enough, and it doesn't impact their rate as much as if they came to me with an accepted offer already. So starting at the beginning for a first-time home buyer is really key, like very early on, because sometimes it takes 2 months, 3 months, 6 months to find a home sometimes.
Or to improve maybe their
credit scores.
Right, credit scores, in order to get the best rate possible. So that's really a great point, in that somebody could approach you wanting to buy a home, and the information they receive back from you could be different based upon where they are in the process of their credit at that moment.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
And somebody who is savvy and knows and keeps track of their credit score, it's not an issue. So again, you get the whole gamut of different types of clients who need different types of assistance and guidance. And
so you could either be setting out a plan for them to put their best foot forward with a timeline of how they might be able to obtain the best rate by improving their credit score, or you could probably be asked for an on-the-spot pre-approval because we want to buy today or what have you, which are the type of buyers I like, but not all the time, right?
Yes. Yeah. And sometimes clients may not be actually looking, but they decide to go into a few homes and just because they're in the neighborhood and decide to buy that moment. And absolutely, we can get a pre-approval ready for somebody pretty quickly as well.
And tell me about the pre-approval process, because I've described it to a number of people and it can work differently. I know there was always pre-qualification, and there's a difference between pre-qualification and pre-approval. And I think that tends to vary the importance of having the pre-approval with the market, depending upon how many offers there are going to be and where your offer is going to fall amongst the competition.
Absolutely. So for instance, the pre-approval is just a loan officer taking a look at what you tell them as a buyer and them running a pre-approval for you, a pre-qualification. So it is not backed up by any documents like your W-2s or any income documents or your assets for down payment. It's purely information you're sharing word of mouth. So those are the ones I'd be cautious about when you are selecting multiple offer situation. The second next best thing after a pre-qualification is a full pre-approval, where a loan officer actually looks at a client's credit score, income docs, asset information to know that they are qualified. And even further step, which I love to do with serious buyers who are actively looking and looking to buy something within 3 to 6 months, is a fully underwritten pre-approval.
Oh, tell me about that, because that's something different.
Yes, we call that the Power Bid program at guaranteed rate, and we love that because we have an underwriter view a client's complete documentation as though they're getting approved for a mortgage.
And I don't want to cut you off, but this is different to me. It's new to me. Normally, we would have to wait a certain period of time. Like when I write an offer for a client, I'll say we're going to do the purchase and sale within 2 weeks. 2 weeks gives us time for the attorneys to review the majority of paperwork so that we can draft a contract. And I would put a mortgage contingency, if I'm putting one in, for a minimum of a month, because I want to make sure there's plenty of time. But you're saying, and that would be with the underwriter, getting all the information, collecting it, having it all reviewed, and then passed to the underwriter. But you're saying a lot of that process is avoided.
Yes, you get that done prior to an offer being made, so it improves. It's almost like making a cash offer in the sense where you have a fully underwritten client ready to go, and you can even close in less than 30 days in a situation like that.
I've got to tell you, as a real estate agent, I'm very careful when I'm reviewing offers that I'll receive for a listing on my client's behalf. And we'll have agents quite often say, same as cash. Or I get a lot of the ads on Facebook, on Instagram, same as cash. And I've always thought, you know what, same as cash, cash. And now it seems more believable having someone who's well-versed and experienced in the mortgage industry explain that some go quicker to underwriting.
Especially when we've had like the last year or even more, where it's been such a competitive offer situation, and sellers are always going to look for the most qualified buyer to accept an offer, right?
That's something that I would heavily consider then. I would say that this is a stronger pre-approval or mortgage candidate than perhaps people that would need a little bit more time.
Right.
So that's good.
So obviously it involves a little bit more preparation from the buyer's side to get all their documents together, to submit these to me to go to have an underwriter fully review
and what kind
an
of
application.
documents, Sangeeta?
So if somebody's a W-2 employee, it's typical W-2s for the last 2 years, pay stubs for the last 30 days, and their asset documents, so maybe 2-month statements to reflect their down payment, and a few months of reserves depending on the type of mortgage they're obtaining.
Okay, good. So you would need all of those documents, and then they would go for a quick review. And what would the timeline be for being able to close, and how would it vary based upon the individual client?
So the underwriter fully underwrites the loan for the buyer who submits their documents. That's approved, what is called within a 24-hour period. The only thing that we would need to obtain would be an appraisal on the property once the offer is accepted. So that usually takes about a week. So we could certainly do a close in 2 weeks if that was necessary.
That's interesting. I just wrote an article for the Natick local town pages on the appraisal process.
Yes.
And I got a lot of feedback on that because we all use the word appraisal, and buyers and sellers probably don't even think about that until they're in the middle of a mortgage contingency or a mortgage is involved, and we get the phone call saying that they're going to send an appraiser out. And what part do you play in that, and how important is it to you and your industry?
So most properties will end up getting require an appraisal. One, it protects the buyer to make sure they're purchasing a property that's at value, and it's also in good shape in terms of safety, like things built to code, or banisters secure on a staircase. So it protects both, and then it also protects the lender to make sure the property that's being purchased and secured by the property is of the value that it's being purchased for.
So more than just the value. An appraiser is looking at more than just the value. They're looking at it from the viewpoint of the bank and the bank's lending ability only?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
And safety, to make sure that the property is in safe, livable situation.
Okay, and so what kind of number are we looking for with an appraisal? What should it match regarding their loan?
So if somebody's putting 20% down, you certainly would like the appraisal to come in at the purchase price.
Okay.
Purely because if the value comes in lower, then we're looking at the buyers having mortgage insurance if it comes in at less than the purchase price, because their down payment will end up being less than 20%.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
And what if that doesn't happen?
Then the option is to go back to the sellers to negotiate the price because the value is, and obviously comps are provided.
Between the appraisal
exactly.
value.
And the appraisal value is important because it also includes comps on the appraisal report that is produced to ensure that there are other properties that have sold within the last 6 months to reflect the sale of the current subject property.
That's really interesting, and I think you've explained that very well. What can come up? While you were saying that, I was thinking about what might come up between the time of the underwriting, the appraisal, and then the final closing. Do you run into any issues that you're aware of that happen regularly, or something that interesting, or that's something that potentially buyers could avoid?
So if we've done a full power bid approval, we've cleared everything that could happen with a buyer in their instance. So I love that because it gets addressed early on. So the only unknown typically would be the appraisal, and I'm always hoping, and I love to work with agents who have done their homework and priced properties correctly, and buy agents who also know what the appropriate offer amount should be so that the negotiation goes really well. So that's the biggest unknown for us on the lending side, is the appraisal value and anything that comes up on the appraisal. Hopefully some inspections have been done, or even a mini inspection, to ensure that at least anything that is out there is addressed and negotiated on by the time the appraisal gets done.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So as you're moving through the process and we're getting closer to the closing, can you let us know what happens? It's just about to close. You've done all of your work. You've put a good amount of time into it. Buyers are always excited. Give us a little bit of an update as to heading toward the closing.
So on the lending side, there are certainly several federally required compliance documents that we have to provide to borrowers or the buyers, one of them being a closing disclosure. So a closing disclosure has to be provided 3 days prior to closing, 3 business days prior to closing. So if a closing is not happening, it's usually because the buyer has not received their closing disclosure because of some sort of delay. So you want to make sure that you are talking to your clients, as I am, making sure that they have reviewed their closing disclosure 3 days before their closing. Because no lender is going to let that happen, a closing happen without a closing disclosure or CD being reviewed by a buyer. So that's really, really important.
So that could cause a delay if it's not handled in a timely manner?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How often does a loan get rescinded at the last minute?
Not very often. I've never had a loan rescinded at the last moment.
And until about last year, I was saying I've never had something not that it was under agreement with me go back on the market. It's been a little bit of a crazy market, up and down with different issues. So you've never had a loan rescinded. Have you heard of anyone with a horror story or a nightmare about something last minute?
I personally have not had even immediate colleagues have a situation like that. However, I have heard of somebody losing their job 3 days prior to closing, and again,
oh, no.
Exactly, and again, lenders are required within the last week of closing to do a confirmation that a borrower is still employed if it's a W-2 situation. So I have had, but we were able to fix it. It was a union worker who was able to get on a new job. So that has
a rescue.
Yes, a rescue, absolutely.
Yes. So when we talk about, we have the appraiser that you would send out, and who are the people that would confirm that the person is still employed and things like that? Do you have a team, and what things do they check like that? Because it's really interesting.
Absolutely. So my team consists of a loan coordinator who double checks prior to a final clear to close, who will reach out to the borrowers to say, okay, we're setting up this to close on this day, but before that can happen, I need to call your employer. Is the direct number you have? Or sometimes we can do it by what is called a work number that employers provide to us. So there's that option. So we're making sure that the borrowers are working with us, and we're working with the borrowers because we're all looking to get to the closing table on a timely manner. And so the one thing so the loan coordinator certainly does that, calls to confirm the employment is still in a situation. Also just double checks with the buyers, like, hey, I saw you provided these statements. Is this where your down payment's coming from? If not, are there additional statements that you need to provide me? So we're doing follow-up checkups throughout the process. So there's constant communication so everyone's on the same page.
All right, that's great.
Yeah.
So then you head to the closing, and it all works out well. And I know you attend most of your closings.
Absolutely.
With your buyers, and we're done. So with that being said, and the property is closed, what's your next step with that client after the mortgage has been successfully completed?
Well, there's always the follow-up. Congratulations, everything is closed and keys handed over, and you guys usually do that. The loan has to fund, so the lender has to make sure that the funds get sent to the closing attorney's office, and the loan actually funds and is recorded by the Registry of Deeds. Follow-up after that is just a check-in. I usually share some good wishes and send a follow-up card or call to check in to make sure the buyer doesn't have any questions. I remind them if they're escrowing taxes and insurance that they will get statements for taxes and insurance,
of details.
But they don't have to pay them because it's included in their monthly mortgage payment.
It's all rolled into one.
Yes.
So you basically have thought of all of these things, you and your organization, in advance, and built all of that into the transaction. So at the end of the day, it's all going to be accounted for and taken care of. So that's basically the mortgage process, A to Z, spelled out really well by Sangeeta Kalidas. I think you did a great job with that. So I have a little bit more I'd like to hear about you. You've really done a great job describing the process. I'm sure I'm going to have additional questions as they come up. But you make it sound so simple. And, you know, I've been doing this for 23 years, and it usually is because I have someone like you on the other end of the phone or returning my emails. So tell me about your typical day, because for me, I wake up, I've got buyers and sellers I'm working with. Everyone's in a different position. Somebody hasn't found a home, and it's been 3 months. And somebody has found 3 homes. So everyone's in a different position. Your typical day, what do you do as a mortgage loan officer?
That's why I love doing what I do, because every day is so different depending on the needs of every client and what's going on with a pipeline, right? And so it starts off with planning the day. This needs to happen immediately for like the first hour, making calls, making sure, checking on everything. The next hour is a little bit of marketing, checking in with potential clients, other referral sources like yourself, and other financial advisors I'm working with, or checking in on listings or that are coming up, potentially saying, hey, I'll host a broker open. So a lot of marketing, but along with my team does a great job with managing the day-to-day of every single loan that's in process that needs to move forward. So that part is awesome.
One of those people that make sure people still have their jobs before the loan closes, right?
Absolutely,
Nice.
absolutely.
Good team,
That's
then.
one
Solid
of,
team.
yes, and they all are very accountable and they know what needs to happen. So that part is the minutia gets taken care of by my team, who all they do is process loans and move things along. So I spend a lot of my time marketing, making sure clients are happy, and having fun. It's what we need to do in this business.
Having fun, or at least we all have to seem like we're having fun, is key, I think. And I was gonna ask you. You do work your referral sources and
Absolutely.
financial advisors and your pipeline. How often do people come to you, a buyer that does not have an agent, or do they usually already have an agent? And how do you handle that?
I would say most people typically will start their process by just walking into neighborhoods and starting their search that way, getting an idea of how much money they can buy and what they can get for that amount of money, like their budget, which is a great start. I always suggest clients do that initially to get a sense of how much or what they want, because so many clients say, I want to buy a house. I'm like, okay, where? Like what kind of house? Townhouse, condo, single family? What towns? I'm like, I don't know. So at that point, it's always like spend a little bit of time trying to figure out what you want. I feel like everyone has somebody that they know that knows somebody that knows somebody that is an agent. So most clients come to me when they have an agent already. But if I don't, I always have my favorite agents that I refer back to.
Good.
Yes.
Good to know.
Yes.
Just and you know, we do the same with mortgage loan officers, and it
Yes.
can come down to who is able to best facilitate the transaction, the client, who answered the phone, who said on Friday that they're going to take care of it, and then you find out on Monday that nothing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So everyone is a little bit different, and that's great that you work it that way. I was wondering, when you are working with all of these different buyers and sellers, I know as an agent there have been many times where, for example, I had some clients relocating from Ohio, and they came in and they gave me the criteria of the property that they wanted, and I started to show them, and their criteria was Sudbury to Scituate. That's about, you know, an hour and a half and multiple towns, and they capped it at 1.2 million. Okay. And so I showed them a selection of all of those properties in that price range, and basically they were complaining or it wasn't enough, and they were disappointed in all of them.
Yeah.
And we continued to look, and eventually we started to get into other homes, and when we saw what they were looking for, it was in the $2 million price range.
Yeah.
So it took quite a bit of time, and I finally asked the gentleman, if that's what you were looking for, why did you mention your initial criteria? And he said, I wanted to see if I could get it at that price. Right. And I thought, okay, well that's fair enough.
Yeah.
So how often with your clients do they come in wanting something specific, say 600,000 to 800,000, and what they're really going to be able to spend is 4 to 5?
Well, right off the bat, when we're working on a pre-approval, we can tell immediately how much house somebody can afford, how much, based on what their income is, based on how much down payment they have available. And so we have a little bit of leeway. So maybe they want a more expensive home, but then we are like, okay, maybe we're not putting 30% down, we're putting 10 or 15% down, or even 10% down, 5% down, but that's gonna come at a cost with mortgage insurance. So we have a few levers that we can work with to be the trusted advisor to your client, to give them correct information. And most buyers don't necessarily know this. But there are also very many different loan products out there that are available. There's not just the typical 30-year fixed. There is a first-time home buyer program out there. There is a 5% down purchase out there. There's a multi-family home that you can purchase now. Fannie Mae just announced with a 5% down, where you can live in one unit and rent out 2 or 3 if it's a 4-family. So most buyers have no idea that there's more than one type of loan that's out there.
Got it. So
Yeah.
there are many different options,
Yes.
and it really all depends. I think that it's easy for buyers to learn quickly that if their expectations aren't meeting what they're actually seeing out there, then they either need to look in different towns or
Correct.
reduce their expectations
Absolutely.
like that. And so it's nice to know that you have multiple different programs
Correct.
that can help people depending upon the situation that they're in. So give me a quick day to day right now where the mortgage industry is. Where are we right now? What's going on?
So a lot of moving pieces right now. In terms of rates, I'm sure everyone's watching this and has seen that we've had a little bit of a rise in interest rates in the last couple of weeks. I sent a great recap to all my referral partners just yesterday about how we're close to 8% on the 30-year fixed.
Yeah, contact us if you want that update. That'll be
Yes.
good. Make sure you reach out.
And in terms of buying points now, that's something that's very solid and an everyday conversation that we have with clients because rates are starting to tick to the 8 percentage points on a 30-year fixed mortgage. So ARMs are an option that I educate clients about. They're great options. The thing that we say in the mortgage business is marry the house, but date the rate. So you
Yes.
can always change your rate.
Good advice.
Always change your rate, but find the house that you love, because that's more permanent.
Right.
Right.
The rate will change.
Yeah, you can always adjust the rate in a couple of years when we're in a different market.
And refinance?
Absolutely.
That's
yes,
great. Do you do a lot of
yes.
refinances?
Yes, absolutely. So constantly we're in situations, again, it's an individual client situation where someone's purchasing a home and they're thinking, oh, it's my 5-year plan, and they 7 years down the line are like, hey, I'm still planning on staying in this house, but they're in a 7-year ARM. We're like, okay, let's fix this either to a 10-year ARM, a 15-year fixed if that's their house that they're there for the long term. So yes, we do both offer first-time home buyer, long-term buyer, and a lot of refinances. Obviously,
great.
the market's not in a refinance situation, but there's always an option for a client who is looking to refinance if they are not happy with the rate.
Excellent. You know, it really sounds like you are a source for everything mortgage, no matter what position people are in their search or in their property as it is now.
Yeah.
And I love somebody who has a lot of solutions and a lot of ways to get business done. I want everyone to feel free to reach out for Sangeeta's current updates.
Sure.
Current rates and advice. Please feel free to reach out. The information is there on the screen. And I want to thank Sangeeta Kalidas for joining me
Thank
from
you, John.
Guaranteed Rate, a
Thank you.
great mortgage loan officer. Thanks. Will you come back another time?
Absolutely.
I'll look forward to it.
This was fun.
We'll see you next time on John McHugh Real Estate. Take care.